Please, someone.
Hide, girl. Predator close. Azalea.
You're talking? Silver trap, east. Big wolf dying. Hold still. I'll free you.
What are you?
Prologue. Wake up, you're dying, girl. Who said that? My fingers wouldn't move. They were blue, cracked at the knuckles where the frost had bitten deepest. The voice came again, sharp and insistent, cutting through the fog in my head. I said, wake up. You're no good to anyone as a corpse. I forced my eyes open. A robin, tiny, red-breasted, utterly ordinary, perched on the edge of the hollow tree where I'd crawled to die. Its black eyes fixed on mine with an intelligence that made my stomach twist. You can talk? The words scraped out of my throat like gravel. No, girl, you can listen. Big difference. Now move. There's a pack of graybacks heading this way, and they won't care that you're mostly bones. Meat is meat when winter bites. My heart hammered against my ribs. The first thing I'd felt in hours besides the numbing cold. The bird cocked its head, and I swear it looked annoyed. East, half a mile. There's a wolf caught in silver. He's dying too, but he's got a better chance than you if you help him. Move, Omega, before the forest claims you both. I didn't understand. Not the voice in my head. Not the words that made sense when they shouldn't. Not the way my body obeyed when I had no strength left. I crawled out of that tree on hands and knees, following the robin's darting flight through the whispering woods, leaving a trail of blood in the snow from my frostbitten feet. That's when I found him. The wolf was massive, silver fur matted with blood, one leg twisted in a hunter's snare lined with pure silver. The metal burned into his flesh, and the smell of seared fur and meat made me gag. But his eyes, gods, his eyes were human. An amber and intelligent and absolutely furious. Don't bite me, I whispered, my fingers shaking as I reached for the trap's release. I'm trying to help. The wolf's lips curled back from fangs longer than my fingers. For a moment, I thought he'd take my hand off. Then he went still. I pulled the silver away, and he lunged free with a snarl that shook snow from the branches above. I fell backward, certain I'd just freed the thing that would kill me. Instead, he shifted. Bones cracked and reformed with sounds that would haunt my nightmares. Fur receded into bronze skin. The wolf became a man, towering, naked, and staring at me like I was a ghost. What are you? His voice was a growl, all gravel and smoke. I couldn't answer, my vision blurred, the edges going dark and fuzzy, and the last thing I remembered was his arms catching me before I hit the frozen ground, and his whispered words. Mine. You're mine now, little speaker. Before we continue, I need you to understand something, this story. It's just getting started, and you're about to witness Azalea's transformation from a discarded Omega to the most powerful woman in the Lycan Kingdom. But I can only keep writing if you subscribe right now. Don't just watch, commit. Hit that subscribe button like your life depends on it, because Azalea's story deserves an audience that shows up. Do it, now please. My name is Azalea Berger, and 3 months ago my pack left me to die. They didn't kill me outright, that would have been mercy. Instead, they drove me into the whispering woods during the first frost and told me the forest would decide my fate. Translation: freeze to death where no one has to watch. I was an Omega, worthless, weak, a mouth to feed when food was scarce. When the storm came and destroyed half our village, when it killed my mother and father and little brother in one terrible night of wind and water and splintering wood, the pack elders decided there wasn't room for dead weight anymore, so they cast me out. For weeks, I survived on bark and frozen berries, sleeping in hollow trees, running from wolves that smelled my blood and saw easy prey. I learned to move silently, to hide, to make myself small and invisible. I learned that cold doesn't kill you all at once. It takes you piece by piece, starting with hope. But then the robin spoke to me, and everything changed. When I woke in the Lycan King's castle 3 days later, I thought I'd died and gone to some fever dream version of the afterlife. The walls were black stone, ancient and scarred with claw marks. Torches burned with flames that never seemed to diminish. And everywhere, there were eyes watching me. not just the servants or the sneering court ladies who looked at me like I was a mud stain on their silk gowns. The castle itself watched me. The hounds in the kennels, the ravens in the rafters. The very timber of the doors whispered secrets when I passed. Aidan Sweeney, the Lycan King, had brought me here as his ward. His favorite, he called me, though I didn't understand why. I was nobody, nothing, a starving Omega who'd stumbled into the wrong part of the woods. But he'd seen something in me when I freed him from that trap, something that made his amber eyes flash with recognition and hunger. "You'll stay here," he'd commanded, his voice brooking no argument. "In my castle, under my protection, and in return, you'll tell me how you understood that robin." I didn't know how to explain it. Didn't know how to tell him that the voices had always been there, just beneath the surface of my awareness. The chittering of squirrels, the howls of wolves, even the creaking of old oaks in the wind. I'd thought I was going mad. Turned out I was just finally learning to listen. The castle was a nest of vipers wrapped in velvet and gold. Courtiers like Judy Tanner and Angela Rush smiled with too many teeth and spread rumors that I was the king's pet, his new plaything, a charity case he'd tire of by spring. And advisors like Asa Delgado watched me with cold calculation, as if weighing whether I was a threat or a tool. And through it all, the creatures whispered. The hounds told me where the court ladies hid the king's stolen signet ring. A squirrel led me to the poisoned root corrupting Aidan's tea. A murder of ravens warned me about the knives being sharpened in the dark. I wasn't supposed to survive the woods, but the woods had given me a gift. And now I was going to use it to survive this place too, even if it meant uncovering secrets that would burn the Lycan kingdom to ash. Chapter 1: The King's Debt. I woke to silk sheets and the smell of burning cedar. My body felt like it had been trampled by horses. Every muscle screaming, every joint locked in place. When I tried to sit up, pain lanced through my ribs sharp enough to make me gasp. "Don't move." His voice came from the shadows near the window. Aidan, the wolf who became a man. The man who'd caught me before I died. "Where am I?" My throat was raw, the words barely a whisper. "My castle. You've been unconscious for 3 days." He stepped into the firelight, and I got my first real look at him. Tall, impossibly tall, with shoulders broad enough to block out the door behind him. His hair was dark as pitch, long enough to brush his collar, but it was his eyes that made my breath catch. Amber, predatory, ancient. I pulled the sheets up to my chin, and suddenly aware I was wearing a nightgown that wasn't mine. Who changed my clothes? The healer, an old woman with more propriety than sense. He moved closer, and I caught the scent of him, pine and smoke and something wild that made my pulse quicken. "You saved my life out there. That silver would have killed me by morning." "You're welcome?" It came out like a question because I didn't know what else to say. Gratitude from a king felt dangerous. He laughed, a sound like distant thunder. "You don't even know what you did, do you? That trap was set by hunters who've been trying to kill me for months. They use silver because it's the only thing that can hold a Lycan, but you—" He crouched beside the bed, bringing those predator eyes level with mine. "You walked right up to me, no fear, no hesitation. That you heard the robin tell you where I was and you came anyway." My hands twisted in the sheets. "The robin said you had a better chance than me. I was dying anyway. And now you're not." His hand reached out, fingers brushing the edge of my jaw. The touch sent electricity down my spine. "I pay my debts, little speaker. You saved me, so you belong to me now. You'll stay here, in my castle, under my protection. No one touches you. No one harms you. You're mine." The word should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like the first solid ground I'd stood on in months. "I don't understand," I whispered. "Why do you care? I'm nobody, just an Omega they threw away." His expression darkened, something feral flickering behind his eyes. "Those wolves in your pack, the ones who abandoned you, they're cowards, weak. Yet they threw away something precious because they couldn't see its value." His thumb traced my cheekbone, gentle despite the claws I could see pressing against his skin. "But I see you, Azalea Berger. I see exactly what you are." "What am I?" "Mine." He stood abruptly, the moment shattering like glass. "Rest, heal. Tomorrow I'll show you your new home. And the day after that, you'll tell me everything about this gift of yours. Every word the creatures speak, you bring to me. Understood?" I nodded because what else could I do? I was in a Lycan King's castle, wearing borrowed clothes, with frostbite still burning in my toes, and a voice in my head that wouldn't shut up. As he reached the door, I found my courage. Aiden? He turned, eyebrow raised. Thank you. For not letting me die. Something soft crossed his features, there and gone like smoke. Sleep, little speaker. You're safe now. But as the door closed and darkness swallowed the room, I heard it, the whisper of the wood beams above me, groaning with secrets centuries old. Safe? No, child. You've just walked into the wolf's den, and the wolves here have learned to smile while they sharpen their teeth. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Stone. The dress they gave me was too fine. Emerald velvet with gold threading that caught the torchlight, making me look like I belonged in this castle of shadows and stone. I didn't. Every step down the corridor felt like a lie. Well, look what crawled out of the king's chambers. I turned to find two women blocking the hallway. The taller one had hair like spun copper and eyes sharp as broken glass. Judy Tanner, I'd learn later. Beside her stood Angela Rush, dark-haired and beautiful in the way poisonous flowers are beautiful. I was just going to find breakfast, I stammered. Jury's laugh was acid. Breakfast? Darling, charity cases eat in the kitchens with the other servants, not in the Great Hall. Angela circled me like a shark scenting blood. That dress is far too nice for someone of your station. Tell me, Omega, did you steal it, or did you earn it on your back? The insult hit like a slap. Heat flooded my cheeks, shame and rage mixing into something toxic in my chest. The king gave it to me. Oh, I'm sure he did. Judy stepped closer, her perfume overwhelming, roses and something cloying underneath. Aiden has a soft spot for strays, but strays don't last long here. They get bored with their toys and throw them back to the wolves. Behind them, something growled. Both women froze. I looked past their shoulders to see three massive hounds padding down the corridor, their eyes fixed on Judy and Angela with unmistakable hostility. They reek of lies and stolen silver, the lead hound rumbled in my mind. Want us to bite them, speaker? I almost smiled. No, but thank you. Jury's face went white. Did you just... What, were you talking to the dogs? They prefer hounds, I said quietly. And they don't like you very much. Angela grabbed Jury's arm, pulling her back. She's mad, completely insane. Come on, let's go before she starts howling at the moon. They fled, silk skirts rustling, their laughter echoing down the stone halls. But it sounded forced now, frightened. The lead hound, a gray beast with scars across his muzzle, sat at my feet. The copper-haired one took something from the king's study 3 nights ago, a ring with a wolf's head carved in onyx. She hid it in the garden, beneath the statue of the first queen. My pulse quickened. The king's signet ring? The very one. He's been tearing the castle apart looking for it. Thinks one of his advisors stole it to forge documents. This was it. My chance to prove I wasn't just some charity case, in some stray he'd tire of. Can you show me? The hound's tail thumped once against the stone. Follow, the garden was wild and overgrown. More forest than cultivated beauty. The statue stood in the center, a woman in armor, her stone face worn smooth by centuries of rain. At her feet, the earth had been recently disturbed. I dropped to my knees and dug with my bare hands, not caring about the dirt under my fingernails or the mud staining my too fine dress. 3 inches down, my fingers struck metal. The ring was heavy, cold, exactly as the hound described. I pulled it free and held it up to the weak winter sun, watching light dance across the carved wolf's head. Where did you find that? I spun to find Aiden standing at the garden's edge, flanked by 2 guards. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes blazed with that predator intensity. No, Judy Tanner stole it, I said, climbing to my feet. She buried it here. The hounds told me where to look. Silence stretched between us, thick and dangerous. Then Aiden laughed, a real laugh this time, full of genuine surprise and something darker, something pleased. Did they now? He crossed the distance between us in 3 strides and took the ring from my palm. His fingers lingered against mine, warm and rough with calluses. And what else have my hounds been telling you, little speaker? That you've been tearing the castle apart looking for this, that you thought one of your advisors was planning treason. I met his eyes, refusing to look away even though every instinct screamed at me to submit. I wanted to help. Help. He turned the ring over in his hand, then slipped it back onto his finger where it belonged. Og, you've been here 4 days, and you've already uncovered something my entire guard missed. His hand cupped my chin, tilting my face up. What am I going to do with you, Azalea Burger? Keep me? The words slipped out before I could stop them. His smile was all wolf. Oh, I intend to. Chapter 3, The Poisoned Root. The squirrel wouldn't shut up. I was trying to eat breakfast in the servants' quarters, because despite Aiden's protection, I still didn't feel right sitting at the high table, when the creature launched itself through the open window and landed directly in my porridge. Poison. Poison in the king's cup. I nearly choked on my bread. What? The kitchen staff stared at me like I'd grown a second head. I'd forgotten, again, that they couldn't hear what I heard. The tea garden girl, the nightshade root twisted and black. The king drinks it every morning. Death by spring if you don't stop it. I was running before I could think. Porridge forgotten, the squirrel chittering frantically as it bounded ahead of me through corridors and down stone steps. My lungs burned by the time I burst into the tea garden, a small, enclosed courtyard where the castle grew herbs for medicinal brews. Everything looked normal, chamomile, lavender, mint growing in neat rows. But the squirrel raced to the far corner where a gnarled plant twisted up from the soil, its leaves an oily black-green that seemed to drink in the light rather than reflect it. I knelt beside it, and the smell hit me, bitter almonds and rot, so strong it made my eyes water. This wasn't nightshade. This was something worse, something corrupted by dark magic that had seeped into its roots and turned healing into poison. What are you doing in here? I whirled to find Kylan Choi standing in the doorway, a basket of dried herbs in his hands. The king's physician, his eyes narrowed with suspicion as he took in my muddy dress and the plant I was crouched beside. This plant, I said, my voice shaking. Matt, it's poisoning this king's tea. How long has it been here? Kylan's face went carefully blank. That's feverfew, perfectly safe. I use it myself for headaches. No, I grabbed a stick and pried at the soil around the plant's base, exposing roots that writhed like black veins. Look at it, really look. This is corruption. Someone planted this here deliberately, knowing you'd harvest from this garden. He moved closer, and I saw the moment his professional mask cracked. His face went ashen. Gods above, I've been using these leaves for 3 months, every morning in the king's tea. He's dying, I whispered. The squirrel climbed onto my shoulder, trembling. Slowly, so slowly no one would notice until it was too late. Kylan dropped to his knees beside me, fingers hovering over the plant like it might bite. We need to remove it, burn it, and I need to tell the king. Tell me what? Aiden's voice cut through the garden like a blade. He stood framed in the doorway, and even from here I could see the signs I'd missed before. The dark circles under his eyes, the slight tremor in his hands, the way he leaned against the doorframe as if standing took effort. Your tea is poisoned, I said before Kylan could speak. This plant, someone corrupted it with dark magic and planted it here knowing Kylan would use it. You've been drinking poison for months. The silence that followed felt like the moment before lightning strikes. Then Aiden moved, crossing the garden in 3 strides to stare down at the twisted plant. When he looked up, his eyes had gone full wolf, amber bleeding into the whites, pupils dilated with rage. Now who? The word was barely human. I don't know yet, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. But whoever did this has access to the garden. They know how to work dark magic. And they're patient enough to wait months for you to die. Kylan's hands shook as he pulled a knife from his belt. I'll destroy it, and I'll examine everything in this garden, every plant, No, Aiden's hand shot out, gripping the physician's wrist. Leave it. I want to see who comes to check on their handiwork. His gaze shifted to me, and something in it made my breath catch. Not anger, gratitude, raw and overwhelming. You saved my life. Again. The squirrel saved your life, I said quietly. I just listened. No. He released Kylan and reached for me, at his hand cupping the back of my neck in a gesture that felt possessive and tender all at once. You chose to listen. You chose to run here instead of ignoring it. You chose to trust yourself. His forehead touched mine, and I felt the tremor running through him, weakness or fury, I couldn't tell. I owe you a debt I can never repay, little speaker. You gave me a home when I had nothing, I whispered. Consider us even. His laugh was dark and low. Even, Azalea, will never be even. And I'm done pretending you're just some charity case I took pity on. He pulled back enough to look into my eyes. From now on, you sit at my table. You wear my colors, and anyone who insults you answers to me. Understood? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Behind us, the squirrel chittered smugly. Told you he'd keep you. Chapter 4. The Secrets of the Great Oak. The tree in the center courtyard was older than the castle, older than the kingdom, maybe. Its trunk was wide as a house, its branches spreading like skeletal fingers against the winter sky. The servants avoided it, crossing themselves when they passed. Even the ravens wouldn't roost in its limbs, but it called to me. I'd been walking the grounds, trying to clear my head after the poisoned garden incident, when I felt it. A pull, deep and insistent, like a hook buried in my chest, drawing me forward against my will. Come closer, daughter of the wild. Come and hear what the stones won't tell you. The voice was ancient, older than anything I'd heard before, older than the robin, the hounds, even the castle timber. Yet this was the voice of something that had stood witness to centuries of blood and betrayal. I placed my palm against the rough bark, and the world exploded. Images flooded my mind like a river breaking through a dam. I saw the whispering woods as they'd been 20 years ago, my pack's village nestled at the forest's edge, smoke rising from chimneys, children playing in the dirt. Then the sky darkened, not with clouds, with magic. 3 figures in hooded robes stood in a circle, their hands raised to the heavens. I recognized the eldest, Silas, the pack's high elder. His voice chanted words in a language that hurt to hear, and the wind began to scream. They called the storm, the oak whispered. A culling, they named it, to purge the weak and preserve the strong. But storms don't discriminate, daughter. Storms devour everything. And I watched my village torn apart by wind and water, watched my mother clutching my little brother as the roof caved in, watched my father swept away by the flood, and through it all, the 3 elders stood untouched in their protective circle, watching the devastation with cold satisfaction. No, I gasped, trying to pull away. No, that's not, they wouldn't. But they did. And when the storm passed and the bodies were counted, they blamed the weather, the gods, fate. They cast out the surviving Omegas, calling them cursed, calling you cursed. Tears burned down my cheeks. Why? Why would they do that? Because you were never meant to survive, verdant speaker. Your bloodline was supposed to die with your grandmother, the last priestess who could command the wild and keep the Lycan Kings in check. But your mother hid what you were, bore you in secret, hoped you'd never manifest the gift. I don't understand. My knees buckled, but the tree held me upright with vines that had somehow wrapped around my wrists. What am I? The balance, the bridge between beast and man, wild and civilized, feral and divine. Your ancestors stood beside the first Lycan Kings as equals, not subjects, but partners. Advisors who could speak to the land itself and know when a king's rule had turned corrupt. The images shifted. I saw a woman who looked like me, blonde hair, blue eyes, standing beside a massive black wolf. Both wore crowns, both commanded armies. Neither bowed to the other, but power corrupts, and those who held it grew to resent the checks upon their reign. Your line was hunted, slaughtered, bred out through forced marriages or simply murdered in their beds. Yet your grandmother was the last to serve openly. Your mother was the last to bear the gift. And you? I'm the only one left, I finished, the truth settling into my bones like ice. Yes. And that's why they tried to kill you, not because you were weak, daughter, because you were dangerous. I slid down the trunk to sit in the dirt, my whole body shaking, everything I'd believed about myself, every cruel word, every dismissal, every moment I'd thought I deserved to be thrown away. All of it was a lie, a calculated lie to hide what I really was. Who else knows? My voice came out hoarse. Who else was part of the ritual? The oak's branches creaked like old bones. 2 of the 3 still live. Silas died last winter, frozen in his bed, the wood's justice, perhaps. But Mara and Thorn survived. And they found new purpose here, in the Lycan King's court. My head snapped up. What? The king's advisors, Baylor Kor and Asa Delgado. Those are the names they wear now, but I remember their true faces. I remember the storm they called. The world tilted sideways. The people who'd murdered my family, who'd tried to kill me, were here, in this castle, whispering in Aiden's ear, shaping his decisions, waiting for the poisoned garden, I whispered. The stolen ring. They're not just trying to kill Aiden, they're trying to destabilize the kingdom. And they'll succeed unless you stop them, daughter. Unless you become what you were born to be. I stood on shaking legs, my hands still pressed against the oak's bark. I don't know how to be that. I don't know how to be anything but broken. The tree's laughter was like wind through autumn leaves. Yet you freed a Lycan King from silver bonds. You uncovered treason with the help of hounds and squirrels. You stand here now speaking to a tree older than kingdoms, and you call yourself broken. I'm terrified, I admitted. Good. Fear means you understand the stakes, but terror that paralyzes is useless, daughter. Let it sharpen you instead. The vines around my wrists tightened briefly, almost affectionate. Go to your king, tell him what you've learned, and when the blood moon rises, be ready, because Asa Delgado will make his move, and only you can stop what's coming. The connection severed, and I collapsed into the dirt, gasping like I'd been underwater. Above me, the oak's branches swayed in a wind I couldn't feel. I had 5 days until the Blood Moon Gala. 5 days to figure out how to stop the people who'd murdered my family from destroying the only home I had left. Chapter 5. The Blood Moon Betrayal. The ballroom glittered like a jewel box, all crimson silk and gold candelabras throwing dancing shadows across walls hung with ancient tapestries. Outside, the blood moon rose, fat and red as a wound in the sky. Every Lycan in the kingdom had come to witness it, their finest clothes barely concealing the predators underneath. I stood at Aiden's side wearing midnight blue velvet, a silver circlet holding back my hair. His hand rested possessively on the small of my back, a silent declaration to everyone watching. She's mine, but I couldn't enjoy it. Every nerve in my body screamed danger. The ravens hadn't stopped circling the castle all day, their cries sharp with warning. The hounds paced restlessly in the kennels. Even the stones beneath my feet thrummed with anxious energy. Something's wrong, I whispered to Aiden. His amber eyes scanned the crowd, cataloging threats with predatory efficiency. I know, my guards are positioned at every entrance. If Asa makes his move, the scream cut through the music like a blade. The great doors exploded inward, and the thing that entered wasn't entirely wolf and wasn't entirely beast. It was something primordial, 12 feet of matted fur and exposed bone, eyes burning with a fire that had nothing to do with life. The stench of death and dark magic rolled off it in waves. Gods above, Kylan breathed beside me. That's a bone walker. They've been extinct for centuries. The ballroom erupted into chaos. Ladies shrieked and fled, their silk gowns trampled in the stampede. Guards rushed forward with silver weapons, but the creature moved with impossible speed, as its claws raking through armor like paper. Blood sprayed across the marble floor in arterial spurts. And there, standing at the back of the room with a smile carved into his face, was Asa Delgado. His hands wove patterns in the air, controlling the beast like a puppeteer. Aiden Sweeney, Asa's voice boomed over the screaming. Your reign ends tonight. The old blood rises to reclaim what was stolen. Aiden's shift was instantaneous. Bones cracked and reformed, his formal clothes shredding as his body expanded into his Lycan form. 9 feet of silver fur and muscle, fangs like daggers, eyes blazing with ancient fury. He launched himself at the Bone Walker with a roar that shook the chandeliers. They collided with the force of an avalanche. Claws met claws, fangs snapped at throats. But the Bone Walker was dead already. It felt no pain. And no fear, only the dark magic driving it forward. It caught Aiden across the chest, and I saw silver poison glinting on its talons. No, the word ripped from my throat. Asa's attention snapped to me, his smile widening. Ah, the little Omega. I should have killed you in the woods when I had the chance. But don't worry, you'll die here with your king. He raised his hand and the Bone Walker turned its burning gaze toward me. Time slowed. I saw it preparing to lunge, saw Aiden struggling to rise, silver poison spreading through his veins like black lightning, saw the guards being pushed back by Baylor Core and her conjured shadows, and I made a choice. I opened my mouth and sang, not words, not language, something older. The voice the oak had awakened in me, the gift my ancestors had wielded to command the wild itself. And the sound that came out was layered with harmonics that shouldn't exist in a human throat, pitches that made the air vibrate and the ground tremble. Every creature in and around the castle heard it. The ravens came first, a murder of them exploding through the windows in a storm of black feathers and fury. They descended on Asa like a living cloud, claws tearing at his face and hands, breaking his concentration. His magic wavered. The Bone Walker stumbled, momentarily released from its master's control. Then the hounds arrived, pouring through every entrance with fangs bared. The castle wolves, Aiden's personal guard, flanked them, and together they formed a wall of teeth and muscle between the beast and their king. I didn't stop singing. I couldn't. The power flowed through me like a river breaking through a dam, and then I called everything that could hear. Squirrels darted through the chaos to trip the fleeing traitors. Owls dove from the rafters to rake talons across Baylor's eyes. Even the ancient timber of the castle groaned and shifted, doorways slamming shut to trap the conspirators. "Impossible," Asa gasped, blood streaming down his face from a dozen raven strikes. "You're just an Omega, you're nothing." "She's everything." Aiden's voice was gravel and smoke, his Lycan form towering over Asa, despite the silver burning through his system. "She's what your kind tried to destroy, and now she'll be your ending." I walked forward, my voice never faltering, and placed my hand on the Bone Walker's skull. Up close, I could see the runes carved into its bones, slavery marks, binding it to Asa's will. Dark magic so twisted it made my stomach heave. But underneath, buried deep, was something else. A whisper of what this creature had been before corruption claimed it. I sang to that whisper. The Bone Walker's burning eyes dimmed. Its massive body shuddered, then collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. The dark magic shattered, releasing whatever tortured soul had been trapped inside. For just a moment, I felt gratitude wash over me before the spirit finally, mercifully, faded. The silence that followed was deafening. Asa fell to his knees, his magic broken, the ravens still circling above him like a black halo. Baylor lay unconscious, her face a ruin of talon marks. Around the ballroom, nobles stared at me with expressions ranging from awe to terror. I stopped singing and nearly collapsed. Aiden caught me, and his Lycan form already receding back into human as the silver worked its way out of his system. "I've got you," he murmured against my hair. "I've got you, little speaker, you magnificent, impossible woman." I buried my face in his chest and let myself shake. Chapter 6. The Reverend Queen. The dawn after the blood moon broke cold and clear. I stood in the courtyard watching as Aiden's guards dragged Asa Delgado and Baylor Core toward the gates. They'd been stripped of their fine clothes, dressed in rags, their hands bound with silver that burned red welts into their skin. Asa spat blood at Aiden's feet. "You think this changes anything? The verdant speakers are dead. She's the last, and when she falls, she won't fall," Aiden's voice was iron, "and you won't be alive to see it. The frozen wastes will have you both. Let the cold take you the way you tried to take my kingdom." Baylor, proud, cruel Baylor, who I now knew had been the elder called Mara, looked at me with such hatred it felt like a physical blow. "You were supposed to die with your whore mother. That storm should have ended your cursed line." The words should have hurt. A week ago they would have shattered me, but I'd spoken to trees older than her malice and commanded beasts fiercer than her hatred. I met her eyes without flinching. "My mother loved me enough to hide what I was. Your legacy is betrayal and corpses." I stepped closer, and she actually flinched. "The frozen wastes are kinder than you deserve." The guards hauled them away. I watched until they disappeared beyond the castle gates, becoming small dark figures against the white expanse of winter. Part of me wanted to feel triumphant. Mostly, I just felt tired. "Azalea." Aiden's hand found mine, our fingers intertwining. "Walk with me." He led me through the castle to the throne room. The damage from last night had been cleared, broken furniture removed, blood scrubbed from marble, shattered windows already being replaced. But the room still felt charged, electric with the memory of what had happened. The throne sat on its raised dais, carved from black oak and inlaid with silver. It had held Lycan Kings for 500 years. Aiden climbed the steps and sat, and for the first time, I saw how the crown suited him, how the weight of it had shaped him into something both terrible and magnificent. "Kneel," he said softly. I climbed the steps on shaking legs and knelt before him, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Azalea Berger, you were cast out by your pack and left to die. You survived the Whispering Woods when no one else could. You freed me from silver bonds, uncovered treason in my own court. And last night you saved my life and my kingdom with gifts most people think are legend." He stood and pulled a circlet from his pocket. Not silver, but living wood woven with gold, dotted with emeralds that caught the light like dew. "You are the last verdant speaker. the bridge between wild and civilized. And if you'll have me, you'll be my queen. My breath caught. Aiden, I'm not asking because I owe you, he interrupted, his voice fierce. I'm asking because in 2 weeks, you've become the most important person in my world. Because when I think about ruling this kingdom, I can only imagine doing it with you at my side. He knelt then, bringing himself to my level, his amber eyes burning into mine. I'm asking because I love you, Azalea, and I want to spend whatever time I have left showing you that you were never broken, that you were always extraordinary. Tears spilled down my cheeks, hot and unexpected. Yes, I whispered. Yes, I'll be your queen. He placed the crown on my head, and I felt it come alive, the wood recognizing its kindred spirit, the gold warming against my skin. When Aiden kissed me, the whole castle seemed to sigh with satisfaction. The coronation happened 3 days later in the same courtyard where the great oak stood. Every noble in the kingdom attended, along with representatives from neighboring territories. But what made my heart swell was seeing the creatures. Ravens lined the battlements, wolves sat at attention along the walls, squirrels and rabbits, and even a family of deer stood at the forest's edge, drawn by the call of a verdant speaker ascending to power. Kylan Choi performed the ceremony, and his voice steady despite the bruises still healing on his face. Do you, Azalea Berger, swear to protect this kingdom and all its people, to rule with wisdom and compassion, to be the voice for those who cannot speak? I looked out at the crowd, at Aiden standing proud beside me, at Judy and Angela, who now watched with something like respect, at the creatures who'd helped me survive, at the great oak spreading its branches overhead like a blessing. I swear, I said, my voice carrying across the courtyard. I swear to protect the voiceless, to listen to the smallest whisper and the loudest roar, to bridge the gap between human and beast, between feral and civilized. I swear to be the balance this kingdom needs. The crowd erupted in cheers. The ravens took flight, their wings creating a black canopy overhead. The wolves howled, and then the sound was picked up by every creature in the forest until it became a symphony of acceptance. Aiden took my hand and raised it high. I present to you Azalea Berger, Queen of the Lycans, verdant speaker, and protector of the wild. Later, when the celebrations had died down and we stood alone in our chambers, Aiden pulled me close. Do you ever regret it? He asked quietly. Being abandoned to die in those woods? I thought about the girl I'd been, starving, terrified, convinced she was worthless. Then I thought about who I'd become, a woman who commanded ravens and spoke to ancient trees, who'd uncovered treason and saved a kingdom, who wore a crown made of living wood and stood as equal to a Lycan King. No, I said honestly, because everything I lost led me here, led me to you, led me to understanding that true power doesn't come from strength or status. I pressed my hand over his heart, feeling it beat steady and strong. It comes from listening, from protecting those who have no voice, from being brave enough to care. He kissed my forehead, my cheeks, my lips. Then I'll be grateful forever to the pack that threw you away, because their loss became my greatest treasure. Outside our window, the great oak rustled with satisfaction, and somewhere in the whispering woods, a robin sang a song about a broken girl who became a queen. There it is, Azalea's complete journey from abandoned Omega to Reverend Queen. But here's what I need from you right now, and I'm not asking nicely anymore. Subscribe. Not tomorrow, not when you remember. Right now. This story exists because people like you show up, engage, and demand more content like this. If you felt even one emotional moment, Azalea's first conversation with the robin, Aiden's declaration of love, the blood moon battle, her coronation, then you owe it to yourself and this community to hit that subscribe button. Comment below and tell me your favorite moment. Share this with someone who needs to read about a girl who was told she was worthless and became irreplaceable. This is your last chance to be part of something bigger than yourself. Don't be passive. Don't be forgettable. Subscribe, engage, and let's build this community into something extraordinary. Do it now. Remember, true power does not come from physical strength or status, but from the ability to listen to the world around you and protect those who have no voice.